This car came in a few weeks ago. We took out a stock VX engine, put in a B18C5. This has to be one of the best Vtec changeovers. While the engine was out, we did a mild build, bumped the compression, skunked to a valve train, ported the intake manifold, including a catalytic converter, and it sounds fantastic. When it was here last time, we did springs and shocks, and it's a little bit lower in the front than the back, maybe because it was set up to be a single cam motor, and the dual overhead cam is a little heavier, so we have an idea for that. Also changed the cluster, so the speedo now works, and he's refinished the gauges in yellow. So we'll go over the list. We're going to do basically GSR front and back brakes, all new lines, pads, rotors. So also the car feels a little bit loose. The rack has some play in it, the inner tie rods as well as the outer tie rods. So the smaller brakes and calipers are going to get removed. Part of redoing this, we're going to put new bearings in everything, new bushings. We want to tighten this thing up. We want to make sure it's as perfect as we can. I think the car was really lacking the rack. You can see there how much looseness there is. So this is the shocks right here. We're basically going to measure this and build a 3/4 inch ring to raise up that lower perch. We'll let you know how that works. This is assembled the same way, basically just preloading that spring and lifting the whole thing up. You can adjust it down, but we had it at the highest setting, so we'll measure that and do a side-by-side comparison. If you can, you want to get everything from a 94 to 2001 Integra. Even if it's ABS, everything will bolt on this car. You need the brake lines and e-brake cables. Of course, you want complete calipers, rotors. You can always replace these like we did. The master cylinder, if you do choose to do the Integra master cylinder, make sure it is a non-ABS master. The booster will also fit in here to improve the overall braking. So you want everything as much as you can from an Integra, including the e-brake cables.
I'm headed to the bottom of the bottle. I've been drowning, I've been floating away. Every other dollar that I got in bed, I'm probably winning it away. I ain't f***ing okay, I ain't liking it, babe.
Make sure you replace the proportionate valve off a disc brake car. If not, the discs are not going to get the right amount of pressure. We're also changing the master cylinder and booster. The master cylinder was a 13/16. We're putting in a 15/16, which is a larger bore. It's close to Type R. This is the proportionate valve. Make sure it is off a disc car because they look identical. There is different numbers on there. We do need to change the e-brake cable. So many disc conversions used to be done back in the day, and nobody put e-brakes back on the car. You got to do that. Buy the right cables, replace those, and then everything is going to work as factory. So not only are you going to get better braking, putting rotors on the back just looks so much nicer. Of course, you can refinish your calipers, put nicer discs on there. You get improved braking, but it just looks a whole lot better too. So the engine swap he supplied, the shifter linkage was really bad, and we found a little bit better one, but it still has that much room right there. You can kind of hear that. He did supply a new linkage this time around. We're going to go ahead and take this one out and show you the one that he got and see if it makes a noticeable difference. I'll show you how to do this too. It's pretty easy, but it's one of the most rewarding things you can do because you're shifting the car all the time, so why not make it as nice as you can? Innovative make a shifter rod kit. There should be 2 rods in here. I don't think there is a shifter in here. Let's take it apart. I'll show you what it looks like. So this is the main part right here, and this is kind of disappointing. It's very loose. Now, this isn't usually the problem. This has a rubber bushing in here. This is just the stabilizer part. There's not really any movement in this. This just sits there. The shifter has a bushing that sits in here that holds it kind of firm. This doesn't do a whole lot. This is the most important, and this is loose. So that to me is unacceptable. I want to take this apart and see if I can improve it, because he's paid a lot of money for this. He's overnighted this part. Let's take this apart and see what it looks like. It doesn't feel like there's really any nylon bushings in there. I mean, we might be able to do something with it, maybe tighten it up. But this just feels just loose as can be. I don't like the way that feels. So I used to tighten these up. I used to show you how you can kind of crimp it and take a little bit of the play out of there. I don't want to do that with this, just so we can see first what it all looks like. Hopefully there's some kind of nylon bushings in here. So this is just, seems like it's just bushings in there. It doesn't feel like there's any bearing material in there at all. It's very dry. I mean, I don't know what they expect that to do. So this is just aluminum where it's being pressed together. There isn't actually a bushing in here. So this isn't actually a bushing. These are just squished together, and you're tightening it, and it's just, that is your bushing, which it really should have some kind of nylon bushing on each side of here if that is going to be tight in there. This is kind of disappointing. Well, what I'm going to do is put some grease on this and snug this down just to take that gap there. You see, that is our looseness we're trying to get rid of right here. The factory right here has a nylon bushing. It's riveted. One of the things I used to show you how to do is, if the bushings wasn't bad, you could tighten this rivet up and take some of that gap out, which we did. But this one is still a little rough. But there is a bushing in here. This is not a bushing. This is just a spacer. It doesn't spin on here properly. It should have something in there. Well, we're going to put this back together and see if we can tighten it up. This is just the neoprene or rubber piece that we talked about. I'll take the shifter apart, but this is my main concern. All right, so it's better. But again, metal on metal with grease between it isn't the most ideal bushing. The shifter, I just took this apart. These are all in decent shape, but this is how it works. These are a nylon that sits in the shifter, and these are an O-ring. The O-ring is just to keep grease in there, but that will run back and forth and feel nice and smooth. So we're going to take all this apart, clean these, put this back together. We'll take this apart right here. This doesn't feel too bad. This is like the S2000, the part that we refer to, we call it the cage. This is something that doesn't usually go bad, but it is in there. It's encompassed in rubber. We'll take all this apart, clean it, put it back together. Hopefully we can make this feel a whole lot better. So once you got your shifter together, make sure the rubber is all the way around it. I always put plenty of grease in there. This is a dust seal as well as keeping some tension on that cage. And again, more grease, the merrier. Once you get it all in there, you can wipe off the excess just so it doesn't get too much dirt in there. So this dog leg, make sure it comes backwards towards you. But now, that has took out some of that play in there, and it's nice and smooth right there. So it shows Integra, but this is not. You see how much narrower that is? That doesn't fit the shifter. This is actually for a single cam. It's not for an Integra. See the difference right there? That doesn't fit. I'm gonna have to modify that to get it to fit around that shifter. That's much better. Still got a little bit of play, but it's better. What sucks is I spent a little over 2 hours messing around with this shift linkage, and of course, it sucks because I can't charge the customer 2 hours to mess around with the shift linkage. So it's like, you know, it's part of just making it right. Maybe in the future we'll look into rebuilding these. I'm a big fan of B-Series. I have a new linkage in the CRX. I had a brand new Type R one. We just cut down to make the length, and it feels absolutely fantastic. Well, if we can come up with machining a bushing to fit these properly and some kind of pin system so you can reuse your OEM parts, because that's now the second shift linkage from an aftermarket company we've used, and I'm not happy with it. So if you don't subscribe, now's a perfect time to subscribe. Keep an eye on our channel. I try and keep you entertained and share some of the things that we encounter. And if we come out with a system like this, we'll let you know first. Looking under here, we're finding there's some noise here. This control arm right here is rubbing the spring. You see how close that is? Well, the whole control arm is rocking back and forth. You can see the gap right there. It should be even. The control arm is pushed all the way forward. You see there it's not even. The control arm is more forward and it's rubbing the back. That's what it should look like. That's what we had. You see how much that slipped out all the way one way. So we're good now. Got some good ones in there. This one is done. If you subscribe to our channel, you're gonna see more on this car. It's coming up on a future video. It's a car we built about 4 years ago, still running strong. Here for some upgrades. 1, 2, 3, go. They sound exactly the same. It's basically the same engine, almost the same horsepower, same build, same kind of cams. It's almost the same sound and exhaust. Old school B-Series.